Hi, everybody. This is 1,182 82 days, I believe. Um, it could be more. It could be more since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. We're getting to the bottom of this, and I've been ready to hear about my son since day one that I've heard. Just tell me, right? Just tell me about my son. I'm very glad to hear about him. So it didn't matter at all as long as it was the truth. But the CID, the Army, they kicked us out, and I think that came from the regional, the El Paso, the Fort Bliss area. And because of everything going on, I'm checking on Facebook to make sure everything's going. And
As long as it
the
was.
yeah, the sound is good. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we have breaking news again. Just always breaking news because we have everything. We've had everything for a long time, and we're getting more and more and more. We don't have, um, it's like you don't have 100% because you never have 100% because you can never know everything. But we have enough to convict Dallas Hart as far as a jury to convict Dallas Hart in our son's case. And we absolutely know that our um, son was a retaliated whistleblower, so they didn't protect him. And so that, you know, says, okay, who was supposed to protect him? His unit leadership, the CID, the DES, the Director of Emergency Services, or the Chief of Security of Fort Bliss, the JAG office. Are they all supposed to work together? Matter of fact, I probably should look all that up and see how are they supposed to protect a whistleblower. Is the DA supposed to protect a whistleblower? Because an active duty soldier on Fort Bliss that becomes a whistleblower is in so much danger. Okay? That's why we have the petition out to support, to put a hedge around this active duty soldier on Fort Bliss right now who is a whistleblower saying that there is a security problem issue on Fort Bliss, and that security problem allowed for a young girl, 14 years old, to live in the barracks, to be prostituted out many times. There's a security problem. This is systemic, right? Because there was a security problem at Fort Hood. There's a security problem at Fort Pendleton, a 14-year-old girl being pimped out in the barracks. There's a security problem on Fort Stewart, now called, what is it called now? Is that Liberty? I don't know. No. Anyway, where the old Fort Stewart, um, I think Bragg is called Fort Liberty now, but they changed the names because things are just that bad that they had to change names. And Fort Stewart had a security problem because of Austin Hawk being a whistleblower, right? So there's a security problem with Enrique Roman Martinez. There's a security problem with Vanessa Guillen. There's a security problem with Austin Hawk, and absolutely with the young girls being prostituted out. You had three beheadings there: Vanessa Guillen, Enrique Roman Martinez, and Austin Hawk. Yeah, right before Richard went missing. So things were in crisis mode. Things were in panic mode. And here comes another regional problem. Uh, Richard Halliday. And this is what the active duty soldier whistleblower right now is saying. They're like, if this can happen to Richard and we haven't done anything about it, and we have a Major General Eisenhower that doesn't do anything about the dangers we are put in, and the JAG is not doing anything about the security of, fraud, waste, and abuse, ignoring any kind of whistleblowing that is going through their office. And, the general is like impotent. You tell him all this stuff, and I don't know what he's doing. Um, if he can't secure his base, if he can't secure his service members, I mean, then put someone else in there, right? Put someone else in there that can. Um, and don't give him another star. Don't give him another star like they did with Bernabe and send him over to Fort Hood, Fort Cavazos, and put them in danger too, because nothing's gotten better over at Fort Cavazos, even though they changed the name from Fort Hood to Fort Cavazos, right? I mean, we're awarding people for putting our service member in danger, putting our country then at risk, and they want to send them all to war. Babylon B just had this, with Senator Graham, and it was funny because it was sick funny, because it was so true. Let's bomb everybody. He wants America to bomb everybody. Let's be at war. He loves that because he doesn't have to go fight. He doesn't have to risk getting his legs blown off. He doesn't have to risk getting burnt from head to toe. He doesn't have to risk leaving a family behind. He's not married, no children. He doesn't have to risk the future. He doesn't have to risk his head being blown off. He doesn't have to risk being raped. He doesn't have to risk being groomed into a sex cult. He doesn't have to risk living in a barracks where it's a marketplace for illegal drugs and flush with weapons. He doesn't have to risk that. He has his Senate seat, right? But, let's just go bomb everybody without putting generals in that will secure our service members, that will create, with $33 trillion in debt, a disciplined, amazing fighting force, not broken down equipment, not broken down infrastructure, not a problem with getting volunteer soldiers or volunteer service members. There should not be. We should have the state of the art for $33 trillion in debt. We should have state of the art infrastructure in the United States for people. There should not be one poor person on the street. There should not be one homeless on the street. There should not be any issues at all with our military, with that kind. I mean, it should be almost gold bullets. We're talking about $33 trillion. That's enormous. We can't even wrap our heads around that kind of money. But yet we don't have that. We have a broken down, untrained, undisciplined. And, they put up these commercials, that are, far from reality. Far from reality. And so we have a whistleblower soldier, active duty, that knows what's going on and says, wait a minute, I need answers to my questions, and JAG is not answering them. Who knows what Eisenhower's doing? I don't even know. I don't even know what the CG is called. I don't even know his name because he doesn't make himself. This is what I'm hearing. Okay, I'm hearing from the alliance inside of Fort Bliss that they don't even know the CG's name because he just doesn't make himself known. It's like he's in hiding, waiting his time out or something. Um, and I'm being nice to him. Okay, I'm not using any kind of foul language, but yet he is putting every service member on Fort Bliss and their family members at risk right now, right now, to the extreme. We have written him multiple letters. And so, we're getting institutional help from other places now. And I don't know what he's going to do. He's culpable now. He is totally connected to this case. And this case is connected to this active duty soldier that has asked for a congressional inquiry because of the security issues on Fort Bliss. Because of, you know, what's going on. If they do this to Richard Halliday, a whistleblower, what are they going to do to all of the service members? And they want to throw us into war. And they're not even supporting us. And being an active duty soldier, it's not like having some other job. You can't just get up and leave, then you'll be AWOL, then you'll be a deserter, which Richard was not, ever. Because he was never, ever listed as a criminal in the federal crime database. Because he was deceased. They already had his remains, his many remains, because he was dismembered. He was murdered and dismembered, and they knew it, but they were in crisis mode because of finding Vanessa Guillen's dismembered body parts also. They were in crisis mode because of Enrique Roman Martinez's head rolling ashore. They were in crisis mode because of Austin Hawk being not only brutally murdered in his barracks room, but no one even called 911. No one even called for any kind of help. No one called for the MPs. Nobody. Because there's a security issue. Nobody called. They listened to him be brutally murdered. So many wounds that they had to hold on his head when they did go in there to lift him up. There was so much blood that it seeped through. And I have to say this because people have to understand what was going on at that time, that he was let to lay there and bleed out all night long to create that ocean of blood. They didn't even call it a pool of blood. They called it an ocean of blood that seeped through. And I don't want to go into more details about what happened. And they were in crisis mode because that's April, May, June. He died in June, the month before Richard was murdered. Vanessa's parts were found the beginning of July. Well, the end of June, but announced the beginning of July. They were in crisis mode. Why? Not because they were crying for Vanessa, not because they were crying for Austin Hawk and his family, Vanessa's family, and Enrique Roman Martinez and his family, and Caleb Smither and his family. No, they weren't in crisis mode because of Richard and our family. That's not why they were in crisis mode. They were in crisis mode because they have a business plan, and that business plan was being exposed and at risk because people were going to lose their jobs. People would want accountability because the law, believe it or not, the law works. Even though they try to thwart it, they try to with all they have. And they put people in very important positions. And that's why, I really want to know about HRC, Human Resources, why they allowed for Fort Bliss to have these people in positions that they have to put our service members in such risk, to develop the business plan, the corrupt business plan of a criminal syndicate, instead of do their job, which is to develop a military that will defend the Constitution, the land, and the people. That means our border. That means our border. But now, what they've done is internally attack our military with their nonsense, with their insanity, and put people in charge that absolutely are up to no good. And so we don't have, the word has gotten out, we don't have the volunteers anymore because our equipment has been stolen, right? Our equipment, our good equipment, has been, we pay for it, but they smuggle it out with the ammunition, with the weapons, and they put it over. This is my opinion. They put it over into Mexico from Fort Bliss. It's a sweet little deal into these tactical move storage units, and then they can sell it from there or whatever. And what else do they sell from there? And what else are they doing? Because they're not developing esprit de corps in a disciplined military to defend the Constitution, which is the land and the people, which is to protect our border. That's not what they're doing. And I think HRC really needs to be looked at, that human resources. Who is the one that gives the jobs? Who is the one that puts these people in their positions? Who put James Hart in his position? Who left Leilani Hart to be, it's like she's Captain Kirk for this criminal cabal. What is she? I don't, she seems to be very, very important because they protect her. And because she is who she is, they protected Dallas Hart, Richard's platoon leader in Delta Battery 143. Right? There is another name that pops up. There is another name that pops up, and it's very interesting that we're looking into it. But because we're getting so much information right now. But I want to say, okay, so who's if Leilani Hart is the captain, then who's her gang members? Who are her gang members? Well, she has James Hart at the VA that can control veterans and can control service members by having access to their most sensitive files, medical, because he sits on the medical health board to determine for veterans and service members what kind of disability benefits they're going to get. So, if you're nice to him, if you look the other way, he might coach you into getting those disabilities. If you're nice, if you look the other way, Jerry Jakovitz might get, you might get a HRC connection, whoever's in the HRC, to give you that sweet job at the VA when you retire. Just shut your mouth. Don't talk about the young girls that you brought in during COVID lockdown into these barracks that were flush with weapons, 14-year-old girls living in the barracks being prostituted out, in the barracks that are marketplaces for illegal drugs, in the barracks that are co-ed. Whose idea was that? That's really, when they have to bring in young girls, because most of those living in the barracks are men, and they want to make the barracks co-ed and give female recruits no chance at all but to be sexually harassed and, worse, even sexually assaulted. And then they wonder why we have a failed PTSD program, why we have a failed suicide program, why we have a failed sexual assault, sexual harassment program. Everything is a failure for $33 trillion in debt. Everything is a failure. I want my money back. And I want my son's remains. And they have these positions filled, uh, and it seems like who's Leilani Hart's gang? Well, we're getting word. We need clarity. A big part of her gang member is Tanya Katzen. Tanya Katzen, Danae Katzen's mother. Danae Katzen was sent out, just like James Hart had to send out Dallas when he threatened us, and then he sent his son out. Go out, just like Eddie Rocha sends out his daughter. Go out. I mean, you almost have to give kudos to Jay Paul. At least he had the guts to do it himself. But Danae is sent out, a young female who has been groomed into this gang culture, gang cult culture. Belen is sent out. She wasn't even 20 years old. She had just turned 18 years old and a young mother, and yet she gets sent out. They don't even protect a young mother. I mean, if and I understand this is her family. But my Oma didn't come from the greatest family either. Not from the greatest family either. But she didn't let them bring her down. She didn't do that. She left. She didn't participate in the Siedlung. She left. And she left right before World War II. She had to get through World War II pretty much on her own with her children. Pretty much on her own. She had a couple good friends. And she worked very, very hard. As a maid. As a maid, she cleaned. She served. And I'm going to tell you, she was just the greatest woman I've ever known. It's rest in peace, Omi. I used to call her Omi Line So Fine. Omi Line So Fine. The amount of joy we had was unmeasurable. Unmeasurable. She protected us. She protected us. She didn't send us out for people to use and abuse and put us in danger to the front line. I've had a lot of people say very bad things about Danae, about Belen, about Dallas. And they are criminals. They are totally criminals. But, I have a real problem with these young people that are being put out in the front line to make people believe a narrative that it is just no good thuggy young people in a sex cult or in a con artist job or whatever causing problems, when in fact there is a Leilani Hart behind them. There is a James Hart behind them. There is a El Paso prosecutor behind them. There is a DES, a chief of security behind them. There is a administrator for CYS behind them. There is a director for family services behind them. There is a CPS reporter behind them. There is a CID special agent Tavita Nusa or a Marlon Soto Hernandez or Hernandez Soto behind them. There are generals behind them, like Major General Clem Coward, absolutely. Lieutenant Colonel, what's his name? Michael Roddick. And the colonel too that I don't mention Dauber, um, Captain Park, but no, they put an 18-year-old young mother out there to develop a narrative. Oh, she's a whore. That's what we were told. That's what we were told. And I think that's the first time I ever said it in 3 years. Because I want her to know that she got the short end of the stick. And, you know, it wasn't worth it. And what Richard said was absolutely right. Don't do it, Belen. Don't do it. They say they respect you, but they don't. They don't respect you. They think of you bad. And the guys, they're just horny. They just want to see you naked. I think I cannot even tell you how proud those words make me. Because he did not contribute to their grooming of a young mother. And he's a hero to me for sticking up, at least warning her. Her response to him was, "You're so weird. You're so weird." I guess she had never met someone that would stick up for her. Truly stick up for her. And in a very humble way. Because he was like, "You don't have to listen to me. I know that, I called the CPS on you." And the culture in there would say, "Oh my gosh, what? He called the CPS." Well, when you see children getting abused, you don't sit around and do nothing. That's why we have the CPS, Child Protective Services. That's why we have it. But no, our Child Protective Services has someone in it like, what's her name? Claudia Guerra. That is Leilani Hart's gang member. Then you go to IG, and what? It's I think it's you have to help me with this one. But the word that we're getting is so Laura, if you're out there, you can call 941-677-0060. So, you work in the IG? Are you a gang member? And then you have, of course, Thomas Kane, who we absolutely know what his position was. Gang member. And then we have Ann Ogle, administrator for CYS. Who's she? Gang member. You have Soto, gang member. Tavita Nusa, gang member. They get paid good. And there's more. And they get paid very good. They work for Park University. They work for their other government job. Maybe they're triple hatted. Maybe they have 4 hats. Maybe, they have a sweet deal going on. But you know what? The American people don't have a sweet deal. We're getting robbed. We're getting taken. We're getting taken, in our case, our son was taken, brutally taken, code red taken, and they didn't have to kill him. They could have said, "Oh, let's get him out of here. He's not going to fit our gang, so let's get him out of here. Let's send him to South Korea. Let's send him to Germany." I mean, he would have been on a plane so fast because he even asked to, be deployed again. He wanted to get out of there. So they didn't have to kill him. But because he didn't participate in their Vanity Fair, their gang activities, and they have um, sophisticated gang activities, okay? Complicated $1 million, maybe $1 billion gang activities. But they're bullies. They're bullies just like a bully for your $10 lunch money or whatever. They're bullies. But they're high power, high money bullies, okay? They're sophisticated. They have a degree. They have a degree and being a bully and manipulating the system to use it for themselves and to at it doesn't matter what price. If it destroys El Paso, if it destroys Juarez, because look at what's going on in Juarez, those people are suffering. And El Paso is an ancient city, y'all. It's an ancient city. It's amazing. And they don't want the people of El Paso to thrive because they're robbing them. And they're committing crimes in order to rob them. And that's why Richard's case is connected to another case that was all about robbing the people of El Paso and, of course, that close New Mexico area, which would rob Juarez, because Juarez is a Siamese sister of El Paso. And, who's going to speak up for them? It's not going to be Soto. It's not going to be Tavita Nusa. It's not going to be Thomas Kane. It's not going to be Major General Clem Coward or Lieutenant Colonel Michael Roddick or even David Park. He's not going to speak up for the people of El Paso. Veronica Escobar is not going to speak up for the people of El Paso. They're not going to say, "We're robbing you. We're getting over you, you stupid people." That's what they would say. Because that's what they're doing. Because of crime. And they have this open border, which, it would be totally open if it wasn't for the people of El Paso demanding to have some protection. But they absolutely, the way they called Richard, and I hope I didn't offend anyone by saying how they think of you, but that's what Richard knew. They think of you bad. They don't respect you. They don't respect you. Look at what they did to Richard. They called him every name in the book. They tried to set him up as a whistleblower so that he wouldn't be credible as a witness in the court of law. That's why they set up that stupid, talk about who's stupid. That DUI with a canine cop and not even using a camera, they can't even fake it good. They couldn't even fake the canine issue in Richard's case. It was like, oh, the canine had to go pee pee poo poo and we had to quit. What? You have one dog? Um, no, because they already had Richard's remains. You see, they already had Richard's remains, and they didn't even take a chance out or time out to even get to know who Richard was, who Richard's family is, our history, because Richard is peculiar. We are a peculiar family. We've been living overseas for over 20 years. Richard is adopted. Richard didn't grow up in a high school. He was homeschooled. They didn't take into account. Okay, he's distinguished honor graduate. What made him a distinguished honor graduate? What made him want to aspire to be in law enforcement? And yet the same people in law enforcement did not secure him, did not enforce the laws, which is to protect, to defend our Constitution, the land, and the people. And they have no value for people because they're human trafficking, y'all. Part of their business plan is human trafficking. That's how they rob us. They rob us of our honor and our dignity by letting our country participate in human trafficking and child sex trafficking and child. Do not forget that Leilani Hart's family has not had any arrests for the notarized criminal complaint allegations against the sexual assault of a 7-year-old in her master bedroom, the claims of incest, the threats of death, her wanting to kill her husband, you know, the illegal purchase of weapons, all of those things that were in that criminal complaint, this sexual cult thing, nobody was arrested. And let me tell you, those are felony crimes that somebody needs to be arrested. So what are their connections? She's like the Captain Kirk of a gang. She said she led the CID around. She led the she's controlling Fort Bliss. It should be called Fort Leilani Hart. And then, they put these young people out in the front line because they have no respect for the young. They have no respect for the elderly. I've learned that about 3905 Bliss Avenue. And this connection with the Roaches, with the Katzens, with the Ortegas, with Sotos, they're at, and you can look it up. You can look it up. Do 30 minutes of looking names up. They've done their best. They have the LC, the L, life, whatever. They've done their best to try to cover this up. That 3905 and 3705 are absolutely Eddie Rocha, Tanya Katzen, Claudia Rivas, Thomas Hoffman, Lydia Ortega. Well, the Ortegas, they have this Van Buren thing going on. It's what that shows, and I'm being bold because what that shows is how much we were lied to. So I'm being pretty calm for 3 years of being lied to, and them covering up for this grand gang who is destroying, doing their best that they can to destroy El Paso, to destroy Fort Bliss, which is destroying our military, which is destroying our security. And then they want to take these migrants and somehow make them legal, put them in the military and say, oh, we'll give you a citizenship, and then give them weapons and everything like that. And then you have people that are like mercenaries in our military. And then you have Graham saying, "Oh, let's go bomb the whole world." I mean, that's Babylon B, but that's always his thing is, "Oh yeah, let's go bomb Iran. Let's go bomb um, Russia. We have to go and bomb the Russians." What? It, they do that because our education is also a failed program. And you go through school and you get this hypnotism, and you don't think that there's any country out there, uh, uh, that's moving along, aspiring to, that are humans. That's how they got away with us bombing Iraq, bombing all kinds of people, very diverse culture, but everyone's thinking, oh no, these are ragheads. I can't tell you how many times I heard that. It made me sick, because all they do is try to dehumanize infants, right? At the youngest age, while they're still in womb, and infants after they're born. Remember that Virginia doctor? We'll make them comfortable. They just try to dehumanize our young people, like Belen, like Danae, like Dallas. I cry to think about what they have been brought to, because they're absolutely criminal and they're absolutely culpable. They're absolutely indicted in this case. And the penalty for this kind of crime is the death penalty, is getting the shot, the injection that will end their life. Now, if that doesn't make you cry, that these young people have been brought to this situation, and my son is the victim, and we're also victims, because they violated our civil rights. They lied to us. They haven't given us our son's remains. They can't even admit to their despicable cover-up that is so clear, so obvious. We have hard evidence, irregularities, and circumstantial evidence of all of that, of the whole cover-up. And yet they still can't man up. They want to be the military. They want to be the leaders. But no, they send Danae out. Danae, go tell them their son is in Cancun, Mexico. Go say, the wallet thing. Oh my gosh. Um, I know I was so naive. So naive. And I really want to apologize to the people of El Paso for taking so long to understand what they've been doing to you, what they've been doing to us. Yeah. And I'm not going to make any excuses, just, being naive, thinking that I had no idea that we were so infiltrated in every agency on Fort Bliss. No idea. And there it is. It's the truth. It's the truth. And all roads seem to lead to Leilani Hart. I don't know if she's the madame for whatever, for the human trafficking, for the weapon smuggling, for the narcotics trafficking. We're getting word of connections of her with Kilometer 29, with tactical move storage units. I mean, it seems like everything leads to Leilani Hart, and yet she is Captain Kirk and not Major General Eisenhower. He's not the commanding general. It's Leilani Hart. Because they still, the media is connected to her. Why would Angela Kachurga feature Leilani Hart in a hit piece of the key witness in our son's case unless I mean, she would have had a lot to lose, and she does, and she does. Yeah, she does. And Park University, you know, they have these grand aircraft, aeronautics or whatever plans for the future. I don't know what they're all up to, but I know they're up to no good. And and we're the chumps. And I know the El Paso people are the chumps. And I know these young people that happen to be born in these families, they've been played. They've been played. And I do know a little bit about that because my grandfather, my great grandfather, my Omi's father, he tried to play his kids too. I know my Oma's sister Paula Tanta. She was eight. I think she was 9 years old. My Oma was 8 years old. My She went out to work for the French, cleaning up and everything like that, and making fires and stuff. And she dropped boiling water, burnt her leg and foot. And my great grandfather was like, "Well, send Ida." That's my Oma. Send Ida. She's like 9 years old. She'll do it. Bring me the money. I need it. My drink money. My Oma, she got old enough and she left. She left. She got out of the Siedlung. Just like Theodora. She left. And she said, and Theodora, the Empress of Byzantium, her famous quote is, "Once you put on the purple, that means being a princess of our King of Kings. You never take it off. You never take it off. Once you put on the purple, you never take it off." And it was a great, great history lesson. I would never have learned it unless I homeschooled and I started doing some history with the kids. You dig around and you want to get something exciting for them, and you learn that all of history is very exciting. It's so exciting, but they never teach us about it. They never teach us about how all the great cities around the world are all star forts. Berlin is a star fort, Paris is a star fort, London is a star fort, Copenhagen's a star fort. They're all star forts. Well, why? Why? Because it wasn't protection. You don't build star forts for protection. You don't need it for protection. Why did they, and how did they do it? How did they build them? These are amazing, humongous structures and precision. Talk about engineering. And you're like, wow. And all of a sudden, there's star forts all over the United States. And you're like, wow, how did they do that? We can't do it today. We can't do it today. That's why I'm so amazed by them, because it's history that is unanswered. They give us some kind of weird little reason, and it's like, no, I don't buy that one. Come on, give me some good history here. And, but I absolutely have read lots about Theodora and Justinian, and we have all this proof. And so I think homeschooling and trying to weed through what what is halfway accurate, right? Because history is written by the victors. What is halfway accurate has helped in this, but I was so naive, and I just want to apologize to the people of El Paso. But I'm going to tell you, I'm sticking with this for our family's sake, so that we could get Richard, that we could get Richard's remains, for our country's sake, because our military is on the wrong track, and they want them to all go to war, and they're on the wrong track. They're not calibrated right. Where's the esprit de corps? That's my dad would say. There's no esprit de corps. Something's not right. It all needs to be recalibrated, right? It's not running right, and we're getting ripped off. I don't think any American minds paying for our defense. But when we're getting ripped off, and our volunteer sons and daughters are being sent to the front lines, not prepared, and not for the right reasons, we're getting even worse than ripped off. And I want to also do this for El Paso. You know, um, El Paso is partly my hometown. I was born at White Sands Missile Range, one of the very few babies to ever be born at White Sands Missile Range. That's where I was born. I went to elementary school at Fort Bliss. I went to uh, elementary school at MacArthur when my father had to be had to serve for a year in Korea, and at that time you couldn't go to Korea. So we had to stay back, and you couldn't live on post. So you had to move off post, and I ended up going from Fort Bliss Elementary to MacArthur. I was on the Sand Sharks swim team with Colonel Johnson, CJ. With CJ, he was my coach. I went to Bassett for 8th grade. Not my favorite year. I wouldn't recommend that school. I wouldn't recommend it. Um, so I understand that area. So, you know, so I hate to see what they've done. When I was young, And you know, you always say that, but when I was young, you could go back and forth over to Juarez. It was marvelous. And you know, we had borders then, but you could still, you know, we still had to get checked at the border, but um, it was wonderful, and every soldier could go back and forth. They could bring their families back and forth. Now with these criminal cabals led by the likes of Leilani Hart, that's playing us and robbing us, our freedom has been hindered. Our freedom to make friends across the border has been hindered. So where's the esprit de corps? Where's the diplomacy? Where's the friendship? Where's the freedom? They're not defending the freedom when they're letting the likes of Leilani Hart create her gang. And you know, Danae and Leilani know each other, of course, because her mother is part of her gang. And you know, so the IG in DC now has enough information, has enough hard evidence, has enough. They're looking into Leilani Hart. There, you know, we've got Major General Eisenhower cornered, and it didn't have to be that way. We were practically begging him, kindly, respectfully begging him to do the right thing. But somebody's got a hold of him, got twisted him all up, and now he's implicated in this. Just like Park University, just like, look, Kocherka works for UTEP. Now UTEP is part of this because she brought this all together. She made a mess out of all of this by what she did. She's got not only KTEP involved in this, she's got El Paso Matters involved in this. And then if that's not enough, because she does works at UTEP, you know, that's involved in this. We just had to write UTEP to let them know, because she is doing her dirty work and then teaching young people at UTEP that no, there's something called vetting, and there's something called integrity, and there's something called respect and honor, selfless service, personal courage, loyalty. And KTEP, because KTEP is like the PBS, right? They're publicly funded. She's made a mess out of all of this by purposely interfering in our son's case to a huge extreme. And it has been just, I cannot even tell you the heartbreak and the emotional, the true emotional damage that these people do. Not only to us, but to people that are watching this case and are like, oh my gosh, I better not say anything because look what I'll have to go through. So, you know, they're ruling in fear. They're ruling us in fear by bullying, by murdering, by chopping people up, by dismembering people and putting them in different locations because they want to smuggle weapons or do human trafficking or attack children with their pedophilia sex cults and create these um, porn shows, these illegal child porn shows. For that, they want to rule us with fear. And you know what? I I just can't be part of it. I have to stand up to it. And I'm okay, I took karate. Okay, I know how to shoot a weapon. Okay, yeah. All right, I know how to protect myself. But you're talking about an organized criminal, high stakes group that don't care. See, I care about humans. I care about animals. I care about my garden and my neighbors. I care about my neighbors. I want to, I've been told and taught and trained to leave the place better than you found it. No matter where you go, you leave it better than you found it. You clean up after yourself, and you sometimes you have to clean up after other people, right? And people say, "Oh, that's not fair. They left a mess." No, I've been told you have to clean up after other people sometimes. So, this gang, they've done a messy, messy job of Fort Bliss. They've done a messy, messy job of El Paso. They're doing a messy job of our young people. They've done a real mess with my son, and I'm going to clean up after them. I want my son's remains. I want it proper. I want these people to be held accountable. I want our taxpayers' money to halfway. Come on. Let's get some of it doing the right thing. So, sorry, y'all. Just the CID deception and them circling Leilani Hart. Oh my gosh. It's like, why aren't they arresting her? She's a Captain Kirk. All roads lead to her. The CID, the VA, we got word out that her husband was afraid of her. She wanted to do him some harm. And I believe what I hear because he even told me. Now, does that mean he's a good guy? No, but that's because this has gone on so much and so much evil has been allowed to grow and fester. And so the crimes get bigger and bigger and bigger. And, just lying to law enforcement authorities didn't do anything to her. She can go right in to CID and say, "Oh, yeah, I want to be a law enforcement." Wait a minute. In Hawaii, you are lying to law enforcement and you have a mental problem. The judge says you have a mental problem. You need to go get a different job. Yeah. Anyway, it's so heartbreaking. Thank you, Anicia. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Donna Click. Thank you so much. We love you all for coming on. And, this is so late again. Look at it. We're burning the midnight oil. And we just appreciate you so much. The big news, the breaking news that I want to share with you today is there is institutional support going on from Washington, D.C., and they have enough they have enough. And, you know, the best thing to do is write them, write them, write them, write them. They need backup. That's what they need. And just like this soldier on Fort Bliss, if you haven't signed the petition, sign the petition. Um, we have to have his back because it's so dangerous. So, and, I didn't even go into uh, the whole history of Richard that I like to do, but I try to make a TikTok every night. I don't even know what I'm going to say in the TikTok because it's so damning to these people. Uh, anyway, okay. Thank you, everyone, and I will be back tomorrow. Say a prayer. Say a prayer that I'll have the right words to say in the letters. We wrote more letters today um, to get the institutional help to expand because the good news is this is pretty much regional and DC, even though McConville and all them, I'm not saying the cover up wasn't to the top, but they were being lied to through the law enforcement agencies that were the gang members of Leilani Hart saying things about Richard that were absolutely not true. And so we'll see. Um, and I'm getting a lot of confident. Well, just that the congressional is moving forward is huge. And so, and that the uh, certain authorities are looking into this is good news. So, say more prayers and say prayers for us that we can stay calm because, a huge crack just happened with 3905 and 3705 and the confirmation that all these families at Danae and Belen and all of them are connected. That's a huge crack, right? And July 9th, 2020, huge crack. So with that, this is breaking. And, you know, um, we've been waiting a long time for that. And so the emotions start pouring out of us too. So say a prayer for us. And I just want to thank you so much for all the strength that you give us. Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow.